Hello, and welcome to Fridays at 4 on twitch.tv/DDO stream. I'm your community manager, Cordovan. I'll be with you for the next hour, hanging out, having some fun, talking about the 64-bit servers a little bit, running the new Night Revels dungeon, and kicking off our Night Revels spooky Halloween event. If you're running it this weekend, hope you're having a good time with it. It is a good time. We got some new rewards. I showed them off last week. You can get them this week and this weekend. Hope you're having fun with it in chat. But I also have a special guest with me here today. So let me say hello to our producer, Tolero.
Hello.
All right.
How's everybody doing?
Hey, good. They should be able to hear you just fine now. Everything should be good. I will put up the Twitch chat in just a second so I can see in case there's an issue. So let's see. All right. Yeah, everyone should be able to hear us okay. I've got some spooky ambiance on my camera here. I don't know if you're noticing, but on my little camera here, I actually turned the lighting all kind of Night Revels colored. It's deliberate.
Yeah.
It's a stylistic
I'm
choice. So I always love that background on your wall there, and I know it's in some ways who cares, but you did that yourself, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay.
It was a case of painting various rooms in the house when we moved in, and then I had leftover paint, and I try to not waste stuff, and I was like, oh, what do I do with this assortment of leftover color? And I was like, well, maybe if I just make an abstract thing on the wall here, do one of those statement wall things. So I'm pretty pleased with it.
Yeah, it looks so cool on camera. I'm jealous every time I see it in our group team meetings and things like that. So the reason I have you on here today is this week we had our 64-bit stress test on using the Lamania game launcher, and I wanted to have you on to talk a little bit about how that went, get some questions from the community answered. Anything you want to ask in chat, go ahead, and let's just talk a little bit about how it went, which is we tried to crash it, and although we may have caused a few problems, it basically went fine.
Yeah, we were being super abusive to that server. For context, I've run events for many years on the project. Gosh, I guess this is my 17th year with DDO. And so I know lots of ways to bring the server crawling to its knees. Really couldn't get it to happen. I got a server in the cluster to choke up, but even that didn't fully fall over, really. Which is impressive because we were really throwing in as much abuse at it as we could in terms of our scary tools that would never be safe to run in the live environment.
And we didn't do that right away, I should say. This was, a progressive thing that we did through the test, because we also grabbed, I guess what you might say, something like snapshots or whatever of things so that we could run our tests and gather our data and do all that sort of work as well. And from what I understand, we learned a lot from that data gathering and actually got a lot done as a result of it.
Yeah, so it was really awesome because what it allowed us to do in some cases, like you say, we would have people on sort of, behaving normally, more or less, but with real builds. These are builds that they had copied over from the live worlds, and just sort of observing how it was behaving. There's a couple of diagnostic alarms that we've been running on the live servers for quite a while, since last year, just to kind of get what the normal ranges are. We have an alarm that basically would fire off every time there was a certain extreme degree of server delay. And so over the past year, that thing had been alarming constantly. And so we're like, okay, this is kind of what it looks like normally. Let's see what it's like on this server. And that alarm never tripped. So that was the first positive sign. Even after we started really hammering it, it was like, the alarm isn't tripping. This is really nice.
Yeah. Now we're not saying that it was a perfect experience though either. We did do follow-up work, and we're doing further previews of this to refine it before it goes live at a future date here.
So I finally figured out a good way to talk about this, since it is the Night Revels season. The best way to think about lag on the server is if you think about it like a jar of candy, right? And I'll see if I can get this up close enough for you to see here. Imagine that all these different colors represent all the different kinds of lag that you can have in the server, right? There can be server lag, there can be network lag, there can be client-side lag, and each of these things can be caused by lots of different circumstances. Now imagine that the yellow and the orange ones in here are lag that's caused by, say, the server itself being non-performant or just being overwhelmed. And let's say that the lag that's caused on the client side, like let's say there's something wrong in a dungeon, for example, is the green ones. And if I want to try to fix the green ones, I got to try to dig through the reports of all the yellow and the orange ones first, right? So with the 64-bit server, now do I not only have fewer candies to have to dig through, the green ones stand out a lot easier. And so now when I'm like, hey, I get a lag report, what used to happen is the server, the sort of ambient lag we would get, would make it really hard to focus fire on what the problem was, because the player would give us their location, they'd give us their character build, we'd go right to that spot, and we'd look around, and it wouldn't be happening for us anymore. But it was happening for the person at the time they were reporting it. And so step one for us was developing a lot of tooling to try to see it better. And we sort of had a sense of, okay, we think there's this ambient layer of problems that we need to get rid of. Well, once that was gone, what was exciting was during the stress test, when people would say, oh, it's still laggy for me. I mean, even though it's really good now in many places, I'm still getting lag in, say, best laid plans, or I'm still getting lag at the end of part 1 of the Shroud, or I'm still getting lag when I play this type of build. And we could see it. So we could actually go there and be like, yep, here it is, right here, 100% repro. And then go to that spot or go to that build and actually see in the logging, because we don't have the sort of noise of all the other stuff, because all that's been cleaned up, and go, oh, for example, my Shroud example there is the fact that there was an invisible volume that was placed in a certain spot that each time a person would pass through it, turns out it was triggering the game to update a whole bunch of data points about quest givers and quest locations that it really doesn't need to do. But that volume was there. A player would never know it's there. All they know is every time they go to this one area, it's like, man, every time you walk up to this spot during this moment after part 1, it always does this big hang. And now we're like, yes, it's this right here. We're going to work on that fix.
Yeah.
So we have a whole bunch of stuff like that flowing in from the stress test, where we're just going down the list, or, oh, look, this one room in White Plume Mountain, for some reason, when you try to go and fight the crayfish in the big multi-layer water room, just frame rate just crashes. Yeah, it turns out there's too many key lights in there. So all of this stuff, it got a lot of the noise type lag out of our way so that we can get down to the things that have to be hand fixed, because as a hand, we really pride ourselves in handmade dungeons. When you make stuff by hand, it means you have to go and find some problems by hand too. And so getting rid of as much of the systemic things as we can lets us do that. So we're really excited.
Yeah. I actually like one of the comments I saw in Twitch chat here about it that's saying, nonsense, they're obviously a delightfully chaotic mix of Skittles, M&Ms, and Reese's Pieces. But I think that that's actually a fairly accurate analogy in some ways too,
Yeah.
and that the cause can be very different in nature, even if it's seen perhaps in the same source or in the same way. So
Yeah, and it's harder to address certain types of it, right? Because if, let's say that's, if server lag is Reese's, getting rid of server lag is a big effort, right? We've really worked hard. It's taken us a long time to build this out, to get it in a place where we can start bringing it forward. We also were cautious because we're like, okay, what happens if we end up in a scenario where, because the server is now running so smoothly, there could be scripts and things that are sort of relying on sort of the pace at which it's used to. And all of a sudden you could get a script that would fire out of order because maybe there's a race condition, because this one is now happening in parallel with this event, whereas before it used to go this one, then this one. So far, we didn't really see that. That was the other good news out of this stress test, is we wanted people in playing real content, playing real characters, to see if any sort of weird, out of order, funny things happened. We were sort of braced for that on one of our sister games that had gotten 64. They had an issue with certain NPCs wouldn't load in like they were supposed to, and it ended up being a timing thing. So we were sort of braced for similar stuff, and for the most part, we had kind of put in some pre-work to try to get in front of that kind of thing, and it seems like it works. So far we've been very, very pleased with the results. I do want to have another round of people on there But so far it's been really good.
So, fun fact that the DDO crowd will know this terminology that we did experience on the Luttra side recently was there was a bridge in Rivendell, for example, that we had people kind of falling through. And that was ultimately traced down to something in the 64-bit environment there as well. Have we seen a lot of that? Do we have a lot of work in that regard that you've seen so far?
Not yet, but I will say we are still a little early in the sense that obviously everybody didn't play every single quest in the game, right? And
Hmm.
even we aren't all the way through every single quest in the game. And so it's really going to be a case of as more and more people are touching more surfaces, we may find things like that. But so far it has gone well. In the early phase, we found one bad crashing issue in internal testing, and we were able to get a fix in for that. And that was it was kind of broad and everywhere. It was basically certain hirelings, as soon as they tried to fight something, the whole thing would just wreck.
Okay.
So we fixed that one, and it's been fine ever since. Um, but we well understood why it was wrecking, and that's the other exciting thing is in many cases it wasn't just, I don't know, maybe this will fix it. It was, here is the exact problem. You can see how it's interacting. Here is the fix. Yay, it works.
Great. So, what can we expect in terms of future previews for Cormyr?
So the next thing we're going to try on Cormyr, in addition to having obviously more people trying more dungeons, there's some dungeons we may point people at specifically to say, hey, everybody try this one and this one and this one, because we just want to make sure it doesn't get weird. We also are going to have people try out the new event that's going to be on the server. So that'll be really fun, because that'll be the first time people get to try that as well. It's sort of what I'm excited about for the event is that if you're somebody who has been missing hardcore, it should help scratch that itch. But if you're somebody who just wants to hang out and play with your friends, you'll be able to do that without having to worry about, oh no, if I die, it's going to do a bunch of stuff to me. Our design of this is it's meant to be y'all can play together.
Yeah.
So we're pretty excited to see how that plays out.
I suppose I probably shouldn't tell my games producer this live on the air, but I happened to be a guest last night on DDO Players News, and I might have dropped a few hints about the Lanterns in the Mists event, but I didn't get into detail about some of those specifics. But I did want to, the reason I bring that up though is I did want to provide this detail about the event as well because it came up there, and given what you said, I feel it's worth mentioning in that it's hardcore-like in that there is a mechanic in it where you can challenge yourself and have to complete certain goals. There's a failure condition. It's
Yep.
not a hardcore mechanic in that once you die, that character is gone or anything like that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah, so you'll still be able to say, I have this goalpost that I'm trying to accomplish, but if I fail the goalpost, I would have to start over. But it's not the same as hardcore, where on the hardcore seasons, we used to have you basically, you would die and then that character was toast. You either had to transfer it back to the live world or maybe you just didn't even keep it, depending on what you wanted to do. And then at the end of the season, we would blow the whole server away. And that's not really the goal with this one, because long term, we do want to have 64-bit worlds for DDO. This is sort of like the first one to work out the kinks. And we want people to be able to stay on the server and keep it. As long as people keep playing on it, we'll keep it.
We're being coy about the details of the Lanterns in the Mists event, but you did just say players will also be previewing this here in the coming weeks. So you will see a chance to experience it and kind of learn more of that detail yourself before it gets to the live worlds.
Exactly.
Okay, so probably the big question everyone wants to know, what do you want to say to the question of when is this coming to the live worlds?
Soon, TM.
Yeah, we can't really give you a date. Yeah.
I can't give you a date, but it's going so well because our original thing was, oh, depends on how it goes. If we find crazy stuff that will take us weeks and weeks and weeks to fix, blah, blah, blah. But this is actually going so well. I don't think it would be unreasonable to see this come out before the end of the year. Like, we were originally trying not to be, super, we're trying to be, conservative, to be like, we'll go in, we'll try it and see what we have to clean up on the other side. And it's just been going so well that we're feeling pretty good about it. So
Mhm.
I'm expecting us to accelerate that timetable because of how well it's going, unless we find some real showstoppers in the next preview,
Which, to be fair, could theoretically
which could
happen. I mean,
happen.
it's we've that's one thing we've learned, I think, over the years is that the thing that you don't know about, you don't know about. So you can
Yep.
make plans, but you know,
Yeah.
so
For
but on
example,
track, we're looking at it. It's probably something more in the range of some number of weeks from now, rather than some number of
yeah,
months from now. Yeah.
yeah. In some cases, we've found, for example, one of the quests that we know is a problem. We're like, okay, we'll put in a fix for this. We have a quick bandage fix that'll sort of get us across the line with that one dungeon, but then a bigger, broader fix that will clean it up in any other places in the game that same effect might be happening that we just haven't had reported yet. But that fix takes like a solid week of coding time to do, and then we also have to do it and test it. And so some of the fixes may not come out day one of the server, just depending on how much of a lift it is to get the fix in. But just even having like this is the problem, we know how to fix it, we know how long it takes to fix it, and then we just schedule it and start doing it, which is just such a different place from where we were when we started these lag investigations.
Yeah. R1NC3 has a question really to Sev's comments earlier about our future planning about the ability to offer transfers to other 64-bit worlds, and that I think the timeline for that really is the same as it's ever been, which is we need to get this first one out first, and then we can
Yeah,
really look toward the ones after that. So, it,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. Uh, Yobstagath wants to know, in the producer's letter at the start of the year, we talked about a dynamic event in that producer's letter. This is that dynamic event, or at least it's what became the dynamic event?
Yep, yep, exactly. The Lanterns in the Mist is going to be this year's dynamic.
Yep. Does that mean it could, in theory, come to the non 64-bit world someday?
It's possible. We've talked about that. We think its initial sort of, first debut will be very concentrated. But we do like a lot of it, and also depends on how fast we roll out additional 64s, how fast we get transfers going for folks. So that's some of the timing pieces in the works. But the goal would be, yes, we would in the future like to see the Lanterns running on more than just a server.
Yeah, yeah. All right, let me kick this to chat. See if you've got any questions for us. And in the meantime, Tolero, is there anything I guess you wanted to bring to the show? Something maybe I just didn't think about asking, or something you've been thinking of that you wanted to bring up?
Sure. I thought one thing that might help as we kind of are entering this new era of being able to report on oh, kitty, sorry.
And she's meowing into the mic, and so I'm trying to
Yeah,
stop that if I can help it.
that's
So
okay.
yeah,
Um, I thought it might be helpful to sort of talk a little bit more about lag reports in terms of when people are telling us about them. What now is useful for us to know? Is it the same as what we've gotten in the past? Does something need to be different? And here's where it lands today. Now that we've sort of tackled the ambient lag in the new server, if you're playing in any of our stress tests with this, the thing that really helps us is lag that is consistent. You're like, it always happens in this dungeon, this spot, or when I'm facing this direction, or anything where you can see that it's like it's always in this one place all the time. We are very interested in those now because we can really drill down on them. And you should experience fewer of the sort of random ones. And in some cases, try to really get us lokes. Like a good example is, we got a lot of reports on best laid plans. And when you walk into that first big room, it's like, oh, this whole room is laggy. Yes, but it turns out that there are about 8 or 9 very specific, consistent spots where it is. You can very specifically go back and forth, and it's like it's at the top of this ramp only when you're running up, or it's at the very bottom of the ramp, about a floor tile in on this one little line here, but only when you're going south. When you get in an area where it feels like it's kind of random, do try to pay a little attention of wait, it's when I step right here, it's when I'm moving forward or moving backwards. Those levels of details really help us on these types of dungeon investigations. And same with character abilities. If it's like, hey, every time I use this ability, or every time I use this ability when there's more than X critters, that's the kind of stuff we can really dig in and see now.
And the way to do that would be to go to help.standingstonegames.com and then fill in a bug report to send to us that way.
Yep,
I,
exactly.
it's a little in the weeds, but I kind of wanted to ask because I heard what you said about too many lights in the one crab encounter
Yep.
room of White Plume Mountain. I love that encounter room. It's really direct from the module in a way that turned out really good, and it looks really cool in there. Are we losing some
Yeah.
light? Is that what that means? Is it going to get darker in there?
It depends. In some cases, it's not so much about how much light, it's about how many lights are touching the same object. There's a certain threshold that you don't want to go over. And also there's two different kinds of lighting. There's these sort of regular lights, which are the more visible ones that you see. And then there's something that's called a key light. The key light is a little, how shall I describe the key light? Key light's kind of like the ambiance, and lights are more like specific focal points. And the ambiance lights, if you get too many of them too close together to where, like, say, a pillar or a wall or a certain item is getting touched by it in multiple directions, it can cause a lot of performance issues. And so in some cases, the fix may not be to remove a key light. It could just be to scoot them apart a little further
Okay.
so that their edges of their spheres of influence aren't overlapped. So we'll see. Our goal is we still want the space to look as cool as it looks. And so it's like, what surgical amount of lighting tweaks can we make to keep the frame rate from crashing out when somebody steps in here?
All right. I am checking for questions.
Sure.
I don't actually see a lot of questions. Are we rolling out any of the fixes we find for lag on the existing servers now that we could see the causes without the server lag getting in the way? So I guess basically the thing is these benefit all the game worlds, not just the
Yes.
64-bit one.
Yeah, any of the dungeon ones, especially. Like if we make a change to the dungeon, there's not currently a 64 and a non-64 version of that dungeon. It's just that dungeon, and it either does or doesn't have this key light, or does or doesn't have this script, or does or doesn't have this volume. So when we make that change, the 32-bit servers get that same change. And so while the 32 bits might still continue to experience some of that ambient lag that gets cleaned up by the 64-bit tech, in cases like, oh, we found a bad runaway script, or oh, we had too many key lights in this scene, those things you will still get the benefit of the fixes.
Here's a real left field one, but since you are the producer and presumably looking to 2025 at this point, what's our plans for Kenneth crafting?
Caneth crafting. So that is a topic that Steelstar and I have been talking about, but I don't think I'm ready to get into the weeds on it right now.
Okay. Okay. At some point, presumably, we'll work with a level cap increase at the very least to do that work to bring Kenneth crafting up to the current level cap. But I happen to know that's not a small task either. So
Correct.
yeah. So with the lantern, it seems people who have completed it and TR'd a bunch can help people who haven't with zero risk other than time. I don't think so. From what I know of the event, that's not how it's going to work. It's not about completing it first and then helping others. Although, I suppose, once you have participated a lot in the event, you will definitely be able to assist others, But,
Yeah, I think it's a little different because everybody is sort of running their own goal, and the fact that you can be running your goal at the same time as your friend's goal, and maybe you're grouping together and each working on each of your goals. It's going to be different. I think that's kind of the major takeaway, is that this will be different than what we have done with previous, sort of hardcore rules shakeups.
okay. We had a couple of questions about the drop rate specifically in Myth Draenor, and I wanted to make sure that the people asking that question are aware that our most recent patch actually does include an increase to the drop rate of both the Fallen Age and the Golden Age by proxy sort of items in the Wilderness chests of Myth Draenor. I'm just going from the top of my head here, but I'm pretty sure that was in
Yeah, I think that's
69.3 here,
correct.
so yeah, yep. Do you have any thoughts about the future of an hardcore 10?
So the next hardcore,
Yeah.
I think a big thing for us with hardcore is going to be getting over the finish line of the 64-bit work. I think we're going to have to really accomplish that before we can reasonably attack a more traditional hardcore. So, but timetable wise, I'm hoping that, like I said, if everything continues to go at the pace it's going, hopefully soon.
Yep. There's a bunch of questions about like how to deal with character names through 64-bit transfers. I saw a couple of those. I have one question here saying about how will current servers exist under this future and all that. So let me just reiterate, I guess, for chat here, what we mentioned from Sev a couple of weeks ago now, which is that the future plan is to do a bunch of work that will allow us to open additional 64-bit worlds in the future. And assuming everything works out here, in the future we would be able to offer free transfers from the 32-bit worlds to those 64-bit worlds, so that would capture the free and premium players in addition to this, first VIP only rollout of Cormyr. But there's no specific timetable for that, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done before we can get there, including things like presumably some perhaps polish on the character name transfer system, but guild transfers and creature companion stables and mounts. And there's really a monster manual. I think there'll be some monster manual concerns in there too. So a lot of work that needs to take place before we're in a position to do that. And a lot of that work is part of why we're starting with this one being VIP on Cormyr, although there are a bunch of reasons why we're doing that as well.
Yep, exactly. Another thing too that came out of the stress test was we knew that there would be a difference in latency for folks depending on where your geographical location was. And so we knew that some folks would get a little worse, but some folks would get a little better. And we did see, say, for example, our Australian players, apparently it actually improved for them. But we did see more of a decrease for the European players than we were expecting. And so we're talking about, okay, as we start introducing more 64-bit worlds, do we want to take one of those and put it closer for the Europeans specifically? And so that's also going to be a factor to think about in the future where we start having, people transferring, et cetera, is you may have a preference on where you transfer based on where that server is just geographically located.
Yeah. But we got to get this first one out first, so let's not get too much ahead of ourselves.
First one has to land, which fingers crossed, so far so good.
And since that one is all a fresh start server, you'll just love whoever gets in first will get that character name. That's how it works. So
correct. This one's a fresh start. Everybody's starting at square zero. So
all right. Well, unless we have any final questions here from chat, I'm going to let you go, I think, in just a minute.
Alrighty.
And run some Night Revels here. So since it is now 4:28 and we're doing about half and half on the show, let me ask you real quick. Have you seen the new 2024 Player's Handbook? Are you enjoying tabletop at all here in 2024?
I am. Yeah. No, it was a big tough choice because they have two different cover arts for it. So one of the cover arts was like more available at like the brick and mortar stores, and the other one I had picked up a copy at Gen Con, and it was like, now I don't know which one I want to use because I like the art on both of them.
Yeah.
but overall, I have a group that we play once a month right now, and we've been enjoying it. And I also really liked their. They also had done some special art releases of some of the other supplements. I really like the deck of mini things. They made like a very cool like box kit for that, and I just love the art of that. So I've really been enjoying it.
Yeah, I've been reading through the manual and planning out my characters, and I've got a little PTO myself here coming up soon, and one of the things I'll be doing is probably having my first actual tabletop pencil on paper session of the 2024 rules, and so I'm really looking forward to that. That should be fun.
Yeah, that'll be great.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you so much, Tolero, for joining us here today on the show. It's always great to have you on.
Yeah, happy to be on. I hope everybody has a really awesome weekend.
All right, and as soon as my cat stops blocking my screen, there we go. All right. Thank you so much, Tolero, for joining us here on Fridays at 4. I am going to, what do I need to do? I need to real quick change game clients, which means I need to swap my screen out. There we go. We'll get a different Night Revel screen. This one's a little bit of an oldie but goodie. Night Revels is available through November 3rd. That kicked off this week. There are new rewards for it. I have the new rewards listed somewhere. Where do I have them? Yep, and the Night Revels guide. Like I say, you saw them last week if you watched the show. If you haven't seen that show, feel free to do so. But towards the end of last week's show, there we go. Night Revels back through November 3rd. We got the new items. Here's the cosmetic orb, the Jack orb. Here's the hat, the outfit. There's a cloak in the other picture. There's also a glimmered weaponar that you'll see here in just a second. Actually, yeah, there you go. And the mount that I don't have yet because it just kicked off this week. I would have to read. Oh, I actually can, now that I think about it. Sure, let me take care of this real quick. Let me put back on my game client. I haven't actually killed the client yet. If I run the command to make myself visible again, make a false true, and then I'm flying, I've got some of these items in my inventory. So let me actually just put this stuff on. Oh. I don't know what's up with that, but okay. Oh, I can't use the mount because I'm in an instance. Okay. So here we are, and this is on the Lacerator, which is sort of my default go-to in terms of a sword just for a cosmetic. And I'm really liking how this Ghostly is looking on that sword. And that weapon aura there. Pretty hot, if I do say so myself. Alright, let me go and take care of that, close the client, and swap on over to my regular play client. You wish we would change the decay on Night Revels ingredients. It is true that Night Revels is a bit of a rarity and that the ingredients expire every year. It's never been a popular choice, to be clear. Typically, I think in general us players are never going to be too happy about that sort of thing. But it's an exceptionally important, truly, it's an exceptionally important part of what has made Night Revels able to be sustained for as many years as it has, with new itemization, being able to justify the work of updating all that loot, updating all the loot. When we get to 36, updating it to 36, doing all the performance changes that we've done over the years. I think the reality is there's a certain section of players who want to be able to essentially grind their faces off in 1 year of an event and then never have to do it again. And although that's certainly a valid play style, from a development perspective, it makes it very difficult if a key metric to determine whether you should continue to work on something is engagement with the event itself, rather than, say, just popping into a vendor and acquiring the item 15 seconds, boom, boom, done, Night Revels for 2024. And so one of the key ways you do that, well, there's a couple of ways you do that. There's a couple tricks up the MMO development sleeve, as it were, that you do to handle that. And one of those things you do is you keep coming out with new ingredients. So the new items take new ingredients, so you got to run the new thing in order to get the new stuff. That's fine. What that causes, though, is a constant, ever-growing list of Night Revels ingredients, which can also be a point of frustration for people who have to save things. Another way you do it is the way that we have chosen to do it, which is that you don't get to keep that stuff year after year after year. Simply get what you need, what you want for that year. And then if you wish not to do anything further after that, well, okay, up to you. You know? Now, the challenge there, of course, is it's going to have some impact on how often someone is going to be taking part in an event. Perhaps, for example, they might have been playing Night Revels for 3 weeks straight, if they were gathering as many of the bits as they possibly could. And if you only need the stuff for just the 1 week and you got all your stuff after a week, well, then maybe you're not playing those other 2 weeks. But I think there's also a part of what we do that we're not really trying to necessarily overly focus you like that. We want you to enjoy Night Revels as a spooky Halloween event and get the items. And to be fair, these items take an hour or so, usually per, in order to be able to get all your stuff. In my experience, generally about hour, maybe hour and a half, depending how much I have to work to get the Night Revels key per item acquisition. You might be slower or faster depending on your play style, but that's been my experience for year after year after year with Night Revels. Is give or take the year, maybe a few things like that mount's going to be a lot more than that. But you're at your average, if you average it all out, generally probably in the range of about hour to hour and a half per item, and that's okay. The ingredient spoiling bit is good, but they should just disappear from your inventory. I agree. In theory, I agree with you there. In practice, however, there's a concern, which is that even if you know no one ever is going to use it, do you really want to delete things from players' inventory? What if something goes wrong? What if you did something wrong? What if you need that thing again? There's a whole bunch of what ifs about deletion of inventory, which go away if instead of doing the very scary work to delete an item from inventory, you simply rename the item and make it not usable. And so that is typically the default. Now, I get you don't want to have to dump that stuff out of your inventory every year. It's not exactly the most fun part of Night Revels, is it? But it's also really, I mean, how much work actually is it? So. Is there a fix for the expired ingredients not showing their name correctly on the auction house? Yes, but we do not likely have the ability to get it out with any kind of reliable time frame for this year's Night Revels, since it is currently underway, and we're doing 64-bit server plans and other things that are going to take up that time. If we can get it in, I think we intend to, but I think the more likely scenario is we've warned everyone, just don't buy anything from the auction house right now. Just get it from guildies, others. And for next year, we're definitely going to get it fixed. It's fixed right now. If we can get it out, we will. It may not be possible in order to do that. So. And yes, it sucks that happened. I think really one solution, and I know this is another solution people do not want to hear, but honestly, with the troubles we've had with some of the Night Revels ingredients being scummed through the auction house, we should just make it not auctionable. We should just make it you can't. Well, I think we just discussed why the ingredients will not be not expire, or will have continue to expire for some time. All right, I am ready to go. Here I am with Shop Till You Drop. I am on Orion? Which character? Yes, I am on Orion. And we're going to run this new quest here. I have to re-mess with my sound effects. I had it, I was actually using a live game client. I think I already mentioned that, but I was using a live game client logged into Night Revels on an admin. invisible than flying in the air to get that cool perspective shot. I also went into the game client and de-rendered myself for my own game client, so I didn't have to be in first-person view. In case you want to know the secret of how I did that, that's how I did that. Sadly, I'm tempted to say that you would need to be an admin to be able to do it. Ultimatum Streaming is wondering why, if Lunar and Solar Slots gems are the new standard, why do we not remove all set effects in the game and make Solar and Lunar gems drop in all chests in the game, with a decent drop rate, of course. I think it's because there is value in having more than one distribution method in many cases for things like that. So, for example, yes, it is for now, we have been developing this Solar and Lunar augment slot system for Magic of Myth Draenor and future content as a way to provide flexibility that didn't exist under the prior system for set bonuses. But when you think about the kind of project it would take to reorganize all itemization from all sort of set bonuses prior and then make that align in a way that still doesn't... you're almost better having a competing track in some ways rather than trying to incorporate everything into an existing track. Because for the problems that the set bonuses have now, in many ways, people still want to wear the gear they have and get the benefits they have from it. So some kind of removal and then making you do that, then ask the question, well, then do you need to compensate them, get them replacements somehow for free? You start going down these paths that don't really make a lot of logical sense in terms of the development project. What you would want to do, I think, longer term, is identify the set bonuses that, through whatever meta you're going through, are of most value to the community, and then try to slot those into the system that's being forward developed, right? So the long-term game plan then would be to make sure that the compelling set bonuses as that loot kind of just over the natural course of history, of game development over the years, becomes less, a little bit older content and newer content replaces it. You make sure you retain those existing set bonuses throughout that. So, all right. When can we expect new loot from a Night Revels event, like new weapons and armor? Well, we don't have new weapons and armor for the vendor reward this year, but we do have some pretty compelling cosmetics. In terms of it's got a pretty good loot slate as it is, and I'm not particularly aware of a desire on the part of the team to do a lot of overhauling of Night Revels rewards. I think in general we're pretty happy with the weapon slate on offer, although maybe there's some things we could do there. I'm sure there is. So I think the probable answer to that would be when we get to the Night Revels update at level cap 36. So that would be my next likely guess in terms of the larger slate of weapons and armor and things like that. Welcome, Spookazin, to Spectre Night Revels. When Maybar draws nigh and the endless night spreads its tendrils, the forces of darkness assemble here. They are irresistibly drawn by two eerie forces, unbeatable selection and value. What? What happened to the House Kundarak Bank? The bank, it was abandoned when we got here. Well, I guess technically it was abandoned right after we got here. The bank employees ran off screaming when they saw us shambling out of the darkness. But now the bank has risen again as yet another branch of the Spectre Night Revels Superstore, and we've crammed the undead corpse of this building full of savings. But why do the forces of darkness need a superstore? Manifesting Maybar isn't easy. The forces of darkness need supplies. to spread the endless night. Fortunately, we've got everything you need right here. Signs, bloody axe, rusty hooks, severed heads, nameless horrors, oh, and pumpkins. Lots of them. Don't even bother going to Maybar Mart looking for a deal on pumpkins. They can't beat our prices. Okay. So, Spectre Night Revels Supermarket
permeates the air as you enter the Lord's March Bank after hours.
All right. Skeletal archer. I don't know the story of how Travis Willingham did VO for this quest. This quest has been kicking around for a little while. Here's a minor bit of news, which is that I was a guest of Draculita's DDO Players News last night, and one of the things that I was able to do a little bit there is talk a little bit about the history of how this dungeon came about. This dungeon really started as a really great idea in our minds. At least we think it's a great idea. And generally, I think, hopefully people agree. And we're like, oh man, we totally need to do this for the next Night Revels dungeon, where the House Kundaric Bank becomes some kind of, perhaps Night Revels themed superstore. Unlike, I don't know what we'd be comparing that to. But, and that idea was so good that we just had to do it. And so this started as really a want to have for last year. So there was a little bit of work that got done on this last year, but when it got down to it, there was no way we could release it in time for last year's Night Revels. It wasn't ready yet. And so instead, we did everything else we had to do. That was the reason why it wasn't there. And did the other however much percent of the work, most of it, this year. But I don't know when the Travis Willingham part got recorded. It almost sounds to me like it must have been done in someone's idea a long time ago, and we did the extra thing. Unless there was an extra VO session that just I don't know about, and I don't know about it, so, oh. In terms of when that was done. But I, too, have got questions. Perhaps I can ask Knockback, and perhaps he'll give me an answer. So, we'll see. I mean, no one was like, yeah, we hired Travis Willingham to do a special VO session for our new Night Revels dungeon. Is not a sentence I heard. So, okay. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. I'm trying to read through someone's question and better understand it before I try to say it out loud. I'm struggling a little bit. I don't quite understand. Okay, let me. Is there any possibility that a sort of essence collectible from Magicka Mithran or chests and merchants to trade said essence for a choice of solar or lunar gems? Getting a gem one needs is very difficult as it is. I mean, that's always the kind of system that we could put together. I don't believe that we have plans to do that. I know that there is some level of frustration that it's been, about a month and a half now, and not everyone has all the stuff they want. But, at the same time, it is rare random loot. With the focus on the rare and random. So, I don't want to be that guy and be a jerk about it, but at the same time, I think we need to recognize that there are chaser items deliberately in Magicka Mithranor here, and those items are not intended to be easily acquired nor something everyone has. Oh, I need to speak to Francis Nieperspin. That's what's up. Okay. Well, where's that? Oh, here we go. Personal shopper I requested. No matter, you're here. I need help to get the last few items for my latest and greatest creation. I have it on good authority. This seasonally available retailer has in stock a replica sun sword, a mounted griffin head, and a truly perfect pumpkin. I need all three before I can complete my work. Off with you! Return when you've collected the items. And collected the interns. And don't bring back any of those jack-o'-lanterns. The first scalped to touch the perfect pumpkin will be mine. Scalpel. There we go. Are there other errands I can run? Also get creepy dolls. Yes. Okay. But that's the thing is, it's been a while since, like, I don't think it would have been what? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the story. What? Okay. Oh, pumpkins. Pumpkins everywhere. Okay, I'm supposed to collect the perfect griffin head. Oh, here we go. Okay. But, also to the earlier point, we did in fact increase the drop rate of the things you're most angry about this week. So run it this weekend. Let me know if you find things a little bit better as well.
Some things seem slightly odd about your surroundings.
Okay. Do I have any... I don't know if I've got any of the unlockers or not. No, looks like I don't. Oh, do I have a Frogo? Yes. Come here, Frogo. Although I think that's a bug, isn't it? Isn't that the bug right now? Isn't that in the next patch? Yep. Let's find out. Yes. Frogo is not unlocking this chest, but will. This will be in the next patch. Okay. It's all spookified. I don't know if you've been to... I haven't been there, I guess, yet. But I was there in, like, August. And one of those chain hobby stores named, like, the Michaels types. And they were just so full of Halloween this year. They were just like... Pumpkin Spice is going to send everyone crazy. So... But were they wrong? Okay. Yes, I mean, it's just a few items that are on the super rare table that some players in particular find highly desirable, and that's why they are there. Okie dokie. Yes, you're right. To clarify, we increased the Fallen and Golden Age weapons, not the Solar and Lunar gems.
The creature fades into nothingness when the last blow lands.
There we are. There's our griffin head. Alright. Next up, the perfect pumpkin. Presumably that'll be... where? Is it back through the portal? Maybe. I think it might be back through the portal, huh? Yes. Yes? No. I haven't actually been this way. Okay. Oop.
A gem begins to glow as the lever is pulled.
I have likened this. Let me see. Maybe I can get this to be maybe this could be my stream shot for the day. That's not bad. Okay, I'll take that. All right, the gem is glowing. Where is that gem glowing? Gem is not glowing over here. Is there a similar one over here I missed? Let's find out. Nope. Nope. Yes. Oh, here we go. I wasn't looking at the screen. Okay, let's try that again. Okay.
The magical ward on a door has been removed.
Eskin Tariq, Pumpkin Fancier. Hello there. I was just so pleased to have found this that I didn't notice you. This is just a perfect example of a pumpkin. I must have it. Diplomacy, bluff, fight. I don't think my Diplo or bluff is anything. No. Okay. Sorry, buddy. I can't speak about our Black Friday sales yet. I would expect to see a pretty good slate of discounts in the works for it. We're just in the start of October here, so a little early yet, but...
The undead creature goes
There we go.
limp, and its bones clatter to the ground.
This way. The only way for fighter is fight, yes. Okay. I have what I need to finish my work. Here is my creation. Oh, gosh. Nice. A cat would not choose violence if choosing violence meant giving up food. Is the Golden Age harder to pull than the Fallen Age ones? Yes, right?
The foul creature lets out a guttural moan as it crumbles to the floor. You stand victorious after vanquishing your foe.
Gotta love that first time Night Revels Dungeon XP. Alright. Subsequent XP is terrible, but that first time XP is pretty good. These are set up like a challenge. So, and before you tell me to change it, no, we want it like this, don't we? Don't you want to be able to run all these challenges just once and get how much XP? Just saying. Pro tip. Alright, well, let me quick take a look at the news here, because I do think we have just a little bit that I didn't get to here with Tolero's visit here today, and thank you again so much, Tolero. A reminder again quick that we do have our Year of the Dragon celebration that kicked off last week, right? Maybe the week before that. So, through October 29th, speak to Zathral, the Eberron Hall of Heroes, to get a prismatic dragon armor, helm, and cloak. We do have Ride to Glory for some mount discounts and such here going through October 10th. This weekend is a double Mysterious Remnants boost through October 6th. And you can check the update 69.3 release notes over on DDO.com. But in general, it was a smaller release for Night Revels and to bring out the new raid, Threats Old and New. I saw that there was an R10 completion already on that, so congratulations to everyone involved in that. If you're running the new raid this weekend, that's awesome too. I would like to run this on the live stream, but it might be a little while yet. And then we also do have a few other just minor bug fixes and things like that, in addition to the Fallen and Golden Age weapon stuff that's in the release notes. So you can find that over on DDO.com. Quick programming note, I will not be here next Friday. I will be back in 2 weeks. So I will see you all in 2 weeks. If you're watching on YouTube, thanks for liking and subscribing. Really do appreciate it. If you're in Twitch and chat, thank you so much for being here. You really are a core part of this live stream, being able to ask questions and propel this show along. So thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy day to spend it a little bit with us here. Hope everyone's having a great weekend, and I will talk to you all in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.